Harris, I want to thank you so much for coming on the My K-12 Career Show to share your story with our viewers and our listeners. Could you please tell us what's going on in your life and your K-12 career right now?
Oh, Dr. Williams, thank you so much for having me. Again, I'm Rosalyn Rice Harris, and I am currently the Director of Collaboratives at the Council of Chief State School Officers, which is a national nonpartisan organization that supports K-12 state education agencies, as well as U.S. districts and territories. So I lead the professional learning for all of our state education agencies, their leaders, and I support anyone from our state chief academic officers to our state content leads in building policy, professional learning, support to regulations that support schools and districts.
Wow. So that's all the states, or is that just some of the states?
So that is all the states. So all states are engaged, as well as U.S. districts and territories. So we support the Virgin Islands, we support Puerto Rico, we support Guam.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. That is really cool. Now, the big question, do you get to travel to those places?
I get to travel. We don't travel out of the continental U.S. yet.
Okay.
That hasn't happened yet. But we do have our convenings around the country because we want to first use, for me, leading this work, use a place-based approach when providing professional learning. So we want colleagues to learn from each other where they are. So use our resources there. So we have to move around the country. In addition, we want to be equitable in terms of travel. So we move around as well.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. But also, I would have to believe that with the pandemic, one of the benefits, if you will, is that I think everybody has become very proficient with like either Teams or Zoom, right? So
yes,
makes it a lot easier to have these kind of meetings and interactions online than it might have been even 3 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. The past 2 years, we've had our meetings, all of their professional learning has been online, and that has been, it's been really innovative. We've grown a lot. We've seen state education agencies grow a lot as a result of those interactions, just with understanding how to use technology to enhance learning and build mastery and build networks. So that's been exciting. And we're also excited that we're able to go back in person so they can solidify those networks too. So we just had two of our first meetings in person earlier this summer.
Wow. Okay. How was that? Was it good?
It was good. It was good. It was good to see everyone. I feel like what we want to see for our students, we see in the adults. So that need for social emotional learning and support for adults is a definite need for the adults that we have, that we provide professional learning to, as well as really making sure that learning is engaging, because Zoom fatigue is real. Our incessant need to multitask is real. So if we want to encourage mastery, we want to encourage engagement, we have to make sure our content is really engaging and our delivery is as well. And we're taking advantage of the fact that we're in person, that we're not doing a Zoom while people are sitting there right with us. So we're learning from that. So I'm excited to see what learning will look like this coming year and years to come.
Yeah, so I would have to be, this year would be the year that is actually going to be as much as possible normal.
Yes.
Compared to the last couple of years, right? Okay, well, that's really cool. Now, that's what you're currently doing right now, Rosalyn, but let's go back to the beginning. Like, how did you even get into K-12 education in the first place?
That is a
loaded question.
I get, and I always share that education saved my life. And without going to my amazing K-12 schools, I wouldn't be sitting here
Mm,
today.
okay.
So I'm very grateful to every teacher, to the just the whole construct of school that
Sure.
I had, because when I went to school, I didn't feel like I could fail. I didn't feel like I could ever be so wrong that I couldn't learn anything.
Mm,
I always felt affirmed. I've always felt encouraged. And I always felt like I'm as I can always get smarter, and my teachers are here to help me do that. And that was very pivotal, especially being a young Black girl,
mm.
uh, growing up in Connecticut.
Wow.
Um, but it's not the Greenwich, Connecticut. It's very, very inner city Connecticut, um, Bridgeport, Connecticut,
Okay.
which I love, but it was rough.
Mm.
And I have schoolmates and friends who, honestly, just because the luck of the draw, they weren't in this amazing school. And look at our lives are very different as a result.
Mm.
So very grateful for the experiences that I've had. And when I left college, I knew that I wanted to provide those same experiences for other kids who grew up and looked like me.
Okay.
So that is why I became a teacher.
Wow. That's awesome. So when you taught, did you teach at a specific level, all the levels? How did that look?
I taught from fifth grade to high school.
Okay.
So
Okay.
my sweet spot is middle school.
Okay.
So I taught middle school. I taught middle school for 6 years, and then moved from teaching to becoming an instructional coach, teacher, resource teacher, then moving into administration.
Okay.
Because with each move, I wanted to first expand my impact,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to impact communities. And I knew, yes, I do that as a teacher. What if I can support other adults in doing this same type of work, helping them be the best they can be, so then we can multiply our impact, which is why I said, oh, I'll become a coach. Oh, I'll become a school leader, and did that work. And we left legacies. I'm so grateful for the work that we've done. And I was a principal for 11 years.
Wow.
Before moving into central office and supporting Title I, and all of that was around school improvement. Because the only types of schools that I've worked in were schools that were in improvement, and had the awesome opportunity to learn and implement promising practices for our kids and for our adults and our communities that truly transform our communities in the way we learn, the way we interact, the way we engage, the way we empower, so that those changes lasted after we left. So I moved to central office to do that work, to grow that work, and did that work for a few years before moving into national nonprofit education work.
Wow. So what school district were you in Maryland?
I was in Baltimore City.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very good. You know, a lot of people, you know, they might not be familiar with that area. You have Baltimore City and then you have Baltimore County, right? And so those can be pretty different too.
Very much. So my first day teaching in Baltimore City, my car was stolen from in front of the school.
Wow. Your very first day.
Yes. Came out.
Welcome to K-12 education.
Welcome. Teaching middle school. We're in a K-8, recently reconstituted school. Was a community. Poverty is real. There's in that poverty, there's trauma, in Baltimore City, if you understand the history of Baltimore City, it's it's been very poor for a very long time,
Yeah.
since the steel mills and the factories have left. So there is just a void in the city that they're working really hard to come back from, but it's very hard. So it hit some communities harder than others. And the community that I served was hit really hard. So yeah, my car was stolen the first day. My principal said, "I hope you're coming back." And I said, "I gotta come back. I gotta make money to buy a new car." And but in 3 years, it went from me having my car stolen to my children sitting outside because they knew I stayed at school late to prepare for them.
Wow.
Watching my car.
Wow.
So that is the power of relationship.
Sure.
And being that warm demander, having high expectations, but I'm going to scaffold for you to get there. And yeah, then we'll go through it again. You're not going to have the scaffolds because I'm not going to be there. But now you know how to strategize, how to cope, and how to be resourceful to find those answers for yourselves. So I am committed to that and learned how to become committed to that while teaching in Baltimore City.
Wow, that's powerful. Now, since you worked in Baltimore City and you shared that experience, which I'd have to believe, it's easy to look back and kind of laugh about it, but I would have to believe it was pretty traumatic, just going through that when you were going through it. I'm sure there are people that are watching us right now that might be in their first, second, or third year that maybe had a really tough year this year. Like, what kind of advice would you give to those teachers that are new to our profession? They might be in an inner city school. They might have had a tough year, especially, dealing with all that the pandemic brought, to our world. And then on top of that, they're in a brand new profession. What kind of advice would you give to them?
Oh, that is a big question and a good question. I support learners at all levels, and it's been traumatic these past 2 years for everyone in every place, and especially for our new teachers to don't give up. This is hard work. This is life work. This is legacy work. And first, give yourself some grace because you are allowed to recognize your trauma. This has been traumatic for everyone. And I want you all to take time to figure out what can you do to help feed you, to help you get through the days, the weeks, and so on, to get through the year successfully. And what I also urge educators to do is to understand, as much as we were hurting, so are our kids. So how do we create spaces in our classrooms, in our schools, to support our kids in processing what that trauma feels like, what it looks like to them, what this loss is coming out to be? Because many times, again, working in kids, working with all ages, but kids, especially now, don't have the language yet. They don't have the words yet to express what they're going through. So our kids who need the most love express it in some of the ugliest ways. It makes it very hard.
Yeah, that's true.
I urge my teachers, I urge my leaders to find a redeeming quality in each and every kid and to work on those relationships first. However, that doesn't mean pity. It doesn't mean pity. It means that I want to connect with you as a human to human, person to person, your likes and dislikes, and how can I best connect and accommodate you in the classroom? Because these are my expectations, and being clear with those and making sure that it's not so many that you can't keep track of,
Yeah.
but it's enough to know that, yes, we're teaching content and we are growing people. So figuring out what that happy medium is, and I know the districts and your leaders are saying you have to cover all of this content and do all of these things. Kids cannot learn in chaos. So you have to bring a sense of order and safety, both physical and social emotional safety first. Concentrate on that, and the rest will come.
Love it. That's really, really good advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. I also think that the worldwide pandemic has really kind of brought to the forefront in the spotlight this whole issue of mental health and self-care. How have you personally handled the pandemic as it relates to your career, your family, etc.?
It was a tough transition. I I thrive off seeing people. So not being able to interact with people physically was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
We had to make immediate shifts from in person to virtual learning, which everyone had to do. Um, and we're doing it for adults, which it does look different. And
Mm-hmm.
I also had the same fear. I had the fear of what this pandemic would bring, um, health wise, to my family, my friends. There was a lot of so much news, so much information. It was overwhelming. And what I did, the one thing I worked on was focusing on myself, focusing on my health, to make sure that I was as physically fit as possible.
Sure.
So if something happened to me, if I came down with COVID, that I would have the best possible chance of being okay. So I took up running.
Okay.
And really enjoyed that. And I've done that for the past 2 years.
That's awesome.
So thank you.
Yeah.
So I've done that. And another thing is that I made sure that that I had peer groups, that I had groups of people whom I can connect with, confide in, who and I can support and they would support me. So I did that as well. And then lastly, um, I utilized mental health services when needed, because there's some things I just didn't want to uh, burden my peer groups with, or there was a need for more professional care for me. So I accessed those services.
That's excellent.
And I think um, having a positive and uh, healthy mental health is it is just a game changer in utilizing your resources, especially being in addition to in the pandemic, being a person of color going through the pandemic, watching Black and Brown people just die at incredible rates. It shakes your core. So there's so much more for us to process, that we may need help processing our thoughts and feelings. So accessing professional mental health services, that was key for me as well.
Yeah, it was key for me too. And let's be honest, like in our community, that's not something that we really do. And so I really appreciate you just sharing that. And I just want to, just encourage anybody that's watching, like, your health is your wealth. Like, if you don't have that, you don't have anything. And so to me, I think more than anything, especially being in my early 50s, it just really kind of crystallized how important it is to just really take care of myself and, make sure that my cup is full. I have this water bottle here. If I go into the building and my school and I'm on empty, it's really hard for me to pour into anybody if I'm on empty.
Exactly.
Right? And so I really just try to go in and make sure that I'm straight. And if I'm not straight, like you said, to your point, just be willing to get the help and be vulnerable and be like, hey, I need the extra help. I need the support. so that I can do my job to the best of my ability. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. That's not done enough, truthfully, in our community. So that's why we're out here, right? We're just giving out these
Yes.
good golden nuggets for people to just kind of, use and just access. So appreciate you just being transparent about that. Thank you. So, also our K-12 profession gets a bad rap, in my opinion. I feel like we're the absolute greatest profession in the world. We're the profession that makes all other professions possible, but we still get a bad rap, particularly in the United States. Why do you feel like our profession is a great profession, Rosalyn?
Joseph, I'm working really hard how words to use to explain my thoughts on that. So I think this to be transparent, because everybody went to school, everybody thinks they know what good teaching and learning looks like, and they can tell us what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, everybody went to the doctor. We don't all tell the doctor what's wrong with us. But for some reason, for education, I feel that's one of the things, the determinants of why there's so much opinion on what we say and do. In addition to, it's taxpayer payer funded, and people want to have a say in where their money goes. And I think, especially now sitting where I sit with national policy, there's a lot of decisions being made for and regarding educators, but not by educators, which then opens up the profession for additional criticism. And especially in public schools, with the majority of our children in public schools, that we're dealing with the human product, and the families are part of that product. So if you're watching your child progress through grade levels, you're going to have opinions, and those opinions coalesce into either praise and or criticism. I found it was very interesting to watch when we first entered the pandemic in 2020, how teachers were regarded as heroes for this very quick transition, and doing these amazing things virtually to engage students, and their bravery and selflessness, and going into communities, passing out computers, resources, all of these things. And then when felt like it was time for kids to go back to school, and teachers were very concerned about the rollout of back to school, that teachers turned into the pariah, that they were lazy, that they were, and that is far from the truth of what teaching, the profession, and the work that goes into being a strong teacher. So I think it's a variety of things. It's that all of our kids go to school, we watch progression, and we form opinions. We vet those opinions out, which then coalesce into these larger opinions, actions, and stances. That there's policy being created, that there's majority of people are not teachers, but they're creating policy for us. As well as, one universal commonality people has, that they've all gone to school. Yeah. So we all talk about our experience. So I think that supports people in what they think, and their opinions being true. I think that the tide is definitely changing, because people are showing, especially our teachers are showing with their actions, with leaving the classroom, resigning their positions, saying that enough is enough. this is, just as you said, Joseph, this is the profession that creates all other professions.
Yeah.
So how do we ensure that we're holding our teachers in high esteem?
Yeah.
Yes, we all need to grow as professionals, but who deems that? And who paces that out? Because our teachers can't be everything to everybody, and then you expect that same longevity of a 25, 30-year veteran in the classroom. It's that work, that type of work is no longer sustainable, and more is being added. And I think it's unrealistic for us to say, yes, you're going to be the master of all contents. You're going to be able to be the social worker and be able to call and support kids at all of these different levels with a larger size classroom with with inadequate resources, and then be expected to be successful. No teacher should have to put together a donor choose or GoFundMe to get supplies for their classroom. No teacher should have to get a second job in order to stay in the classroom. None of those things should happen. And then you're like, well, how come my kids are being successful? Well, that's only two things. And there's other things too. Yes. I know that we need to support our teachers in addressing and breaking down barriers for equity, because many of our teachers currently do not look like or reflect the experiences of our public school kids. The majority of our public school students are minority students. It's a growing population, and many of our teachers are white females. So our teaching population is not going to just turn and change anytime soon.
Yeah.
How do we then build these supports for the teachers that we currently have to be the most successful as they can be with our children and beyond what they think, because the mind can fix you for a variety of reasons. How can we support our teachers in pushing past their thinking to ensuring that each and every kid is successful and they're successful as well? Because I hear what everyone says about teachers. No one comes to work saying, I'm just going to fail these kids and be okay with it.
That's
no
true.
one does.
That's true. That's very true. No, that's fair. No, I appreciate that perspective. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we fix a lot of the issues that we have in K-12 education, but I also feel like, at least I was hoping, very optimistically, that the pandemic would help the public as a whole to really respect and appreciate what we do every single day. And I agree. I think you're right. I think in the beginning we were kind of looked at as the heroes, and man, that narrative changed. That narrative changed like halfway through this pandemic. But I also feel like on a certain level, people all realize, whether we're talking about the United States or any other country in this world, like, you have whole economies that cannot run if there's no school, right?
Yep.
And, I think I would hope, and maybe this is wishful thinking, I don't know, but I would hope that having your child in their bedroom and that bedroom had to be their classroom gave you a much greater appreciation for what we do as K-12 educators. But I think, to your point, you're right. I think that a lot of people just, they realized how hard it was, but they were also ready to get their kids back into school by any means necessary, even if it meant putting our own lives at risk by having them there. So, I just feel like there needs to be some balance there. But I also feel like this is one of the reasons why I started this show. Like, y'all need to understand what we do for your children, with the potential risk to our own children and our families, right? And so, I really appreciate that perspective. But you've been doing this a very, very long time, Rosalyn. Like, how do you balance work and life, work and family?
Hmm. I
Or
think
do
it
you?
varied based upon what I was doing. When I taught that, so teaching was my life. I loved it.
Mm,
And in retrospect, you gotta have balance, um, and really have an identity outside of your work,
sure.
and setting up that identity or creating that identity for yourself is finding things that you like to do and committing to doing them, having a stop time for your work,
Mm-hmm.
and prioritizing things at work, so you're not there
Mm,
all of the time. You can't get everything done. It's just impossible. It will all never be done. So how do we create priorities to ensure that the most important things get done, and then create networks so that the things that are hard, or the things that you can collaborate on or share, that you can do within your network or within your team. It doesn't have to be a team of needs. Teaching is not meant to be done in isolation. Utilize your teammates, and that'll make the work easier. And then we'll then support you in creating time for you to discover that part of yourself outside of the classroom. So, making sure that you stop. Your weekends are yours. Um, don't stay at that school until it gets dark every night. There's no badge that you get for staying busy, staying late. There's no badge for that. Your
yeah,
your family, your friends, yourself, you need you. So
absolutely. No, that's really
preserve
good.
some fuel in that tank for yourself,
Yeah.
and make that a priority every day. Um, and I think the principalship was even worse. Um,
Mm,
my daughter was, uh, she was maybe 6 months old when I took my last
mm,
principalship. So she grew up in the school. And I'm grateful for having a community that embraced us. And yeah, in retrospect, mm-mm. I shouldn't celebrate my daughter's first birthday while at a PTA meeting. That's
no, no, that's not good. No.
So your family's your priority,
Yeah,
and being clear with that. And
sure.
I think especially now, after the pandemic, there's a much better understanding
Mm,
of the need for family and connection and balance, whereas you won't get that second look if you say, "Hey, I can't do this," and not give an answer, not give a reason.
no,
I can't do this right now, and that's okay. And I think for us as well, we've developed more of a resolve that if we do get that second look, we keep it pushing, because um, anything happens to you, your community will, yes, everyone will mourn you for a time. Your family will mourn you for eternity.
mm,
The school community will mourn you for a time, and then they'll post for your position, and they got to move on, because that's how life is.
that's so true. That is so
And
true.
it's for your family, you have to be there for them. For yourself, you have to be there for them. Just like you said, Joseph, you can't pour from an empty vessel. You just can't. So make sure that you are filled, that you're content, or you're working towards that consciously,
Sure, sure.
and you'll be able to then give to your school community in a more impactful way.
Yeah,
Because
that's awesome.
it's not the quantity, it's the quality of what you provide.
I love that. That's really good. Well, Rosalyn, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and share your story with our viewers and our listeners. And I also want to acknowledge you for all the great work you've done all these years, whether it's been as a teacher, an administrator at the building level, and a district administrator, and now working at the national level. I just want to acknowledge you for all the great work that you have done in your K-12 career. I started this program, I started this show because I wanted to honor and celebrate and showcase K-12 educators like yourself. And I am so grateful to you for all that you've done. And I'm also grateful to you for coming and being with us on the show today. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I'm really grateful to be able to connect with you, share a little bit of my story, and willing to connect and share some more, connect with any viewers or anything that you need from me to support this effort. I appreciate it.
That's awesome. Well, before you leave, why don't you give our viewers and our listeners some parting words of wisdom? Tell us how we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Oh, thank you. Parting words of wisdom, that being an educator is the most transformative role that you could ever take. And the great thing is you could be an educator in any space, that you can educate in and out of the classroom. And if you start someplace, you don't have to end there. And the beauty about what we do is that every day is new, and that we are able to define what excellence is for ourselves as well as for our kids.
Love it, love it, love it. How can we connect with you?
Oh, yes. You can connect with me via email, and my email is rosalynriceharris@gmail.com, or via LinkedIn at Rosalyn Rice Harris.
Awesome. That's really, really cool. Well, thanks once again for coming on the show, and we wish you all the best. And if you're ever in the other Washington, please feel free to connect with me and we can meet in person. I really would appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Dr. Williams, thank you so much. You take care, and thank you again for this opportunity.
I appreciate you. All the best.
Same. Take care.
All right.